So what if all this time we've been distracted? What if all this entire time we've been looking at the news, which is the ultimate mind control operation, as we know, and this back and forth for even, thousands of years is all a major distraction about who owns what land in quote unquote Palestine or Israel. And we've known from recent wonderful truth tellers that there's like Tucker Carlson and others that are coming out against the Schofield text, evidencing that insertions were placed overlapping on top of Abraham, Israel, and making them synonymous. Other statements in Deuteronomy that they're making statements that Israel is allotted this or that, and yet Israel didn't even exist yet until Saul and David and so on and so forth. So I'm just kind of looking at this from the perspective of the scroll of remembrance. And again, there's no hatred of any party here. The despising element, pardon me, is coming in from the perspective of truth. Being lied to is what I despise, not a person or a group or a people. I think we've been pitted against each other as human against human, when in fact this has nothing to do with humans, but stupidity and mind control and being controlled at very high levels up to these other races of beings. So in the book of Joshua, it talks about how, Joshua's supposed to have a conquest against all the ites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, the ites, this and that ites, all right? Which we all know is the giants, that they're the fallen seed, which again ties into the concept of the Illuminati, who prides themselves on being the seed of Satan, of the seed of Quetzalcoatl and all these other terminologies they want to use for it. But in truth, this distraction is, look at, let's see these people, the brown people fighting against these people, the quote unquote alleged Jews. It's like, okay, that's the real distraction for thousands of years. The real truth is that all of us have a connection to a tribe, and these tribes are spelled out, of course, going back to Genesis 49. 47, 48 is a good lead up to 49. It gets into, the sons of Jacob and the whole 9 yards, which is pretty cool. And then you have, reflections on those tribes that are described in Genesis in the book of Deuteronomy, which is my major focus this morning. And it all stemmed from diving into the studies of wonderful Michael Heiser, the late and beloved, who I believe is a martyr in my opinion, but who am I to know what the heck really happened with him? All I know is his contribution is something that it's irreplaceable for this time in history, that such a level of truth has come out because of the inspiration of Holy Spirit working through Michael Heiser. And I say that specifically in reference to scriptures that he highlighted in the Unseen Realms, which is a documentary that's hit millions of views. He's talking about how you go to Deuteronomy 32. First, we'll go into the Psalms. Let's just go to the Psalms, because I myself personally years ago made mistakes. Poor God. So sorry, Lord. Forgive me. It's only normal because of levels of truth that have been hidden away from us by design. And of course, we know the Schofield scriptures are tied into the Rockefellers and the whole 9 yards. So there's a real concerted effort to having certain truths dodged from our sight. So going into Deuteronomy, just to kind of highlight what the findings are from wonderful Michael Heiser, he highlighted this aspect here in 32 of, 32 verse 8, when the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the children of, in his text it says God, the children of God, not the children of Israel. That was later. That's to happen later down the road a little bit here. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the place of his inheritance. Now, and I'm talking about the kingdoms of Israel versus Jacob. We all know that Jacob was called Israel. God changed his name, all that. But let's go now to Psalm 82 and see how there's correlation. This is what Michael Heiser was highlighting, which is super important in light of the scroll of remembrance. Because I kept thinking to myself, okay, why is it important for us to look into each tribe that we're part of? And we'll get into that in just a moment. But we're going to pivot a little bit to our Psalm 42, and we're going to go into use our Psalm Codex for that, because the Psalm Codex affords each of us to be able to dive into the Psalms in a way where the scales are taken away from our eyes, and we finally can see the depth of what these Psalms mean. When we're reading and we're praying the Psalms, I know for many, many years, having done it since I was, 16, 17 years old, some of the Psalms I understood and liked them and was bonded to them, especially in the Latin language, which is something the Lord allowed me to pick up naturally just on my own, not in school, until I went to the convent afterwards. But I never ever could understand this. But here it is, Psalm 82, divine judgment and the reckoning of the gods. Okay, so I'm going to read through it. It's only 8 verses here. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Salah. Salah is just a term for hold fast to this thought or this meditation. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. Of course, the devotional meditation, Psalm 82 opens with a divine courtroom scene, God standing in the midst of other ruling beings, both celestial and human, holding them to account. He charges them with corruption, indifference, and neglect of the poor. This is not metaphor, it is revelation. The Psalms then pierces deeper. Ye are gods, and ye shall die like men. These are fallen angelic beings here. These are gods, but they shall die like men. A stark reminder that delegated power must answer to the source, to God, to Most High himself. The final cry is prophetic. Arise, O God, then call for the kingdom of heaven to judge the kingdoms of men. In the kingdom age, Psalm 82 is the psalm of divine reckoning, of thrones overturned and justice rising. It speaks to spiritual principalities, corrupt rulers, and unjust systems. It is the anthem of the remnant who long to see the true king arise. So here we are, we're watching the news and we get mad at this one and mad at that one, and rightfully so. We should stand against injustices, that are coming before us. However, we have to really keep our focus on the prize. These powers that were under the commanding officials of these thrones, these principalities, these fallen beings. And Psalm 82 speaks directly to what's outlined in Deuteronomy, that God himself had apportioned during the time of the Tower of Babel. He gave the nations, when he divided the tongues, because at one time, before the days of Peleg, when all land was one land, one race, meaning human race, one peoples, one land, they spoke it with one language, all right, and they all praised with one tongue. This was supposed to be this unifying element. And so at this point, God's like, hey, you want to worship, these fallen beings? Then great. We're going to go ahead and we're going to come down to earth and we're going to divide the tongues and go ahead. These beings are now going to be in charge of your nations. These fallen, interdimensional, angelic, fallen beings are going to be in charge of the nations. Now it's making sense in light of the United Nations. It's the opposite of Pentecost, because Pentecost was the turning of this cosmic appointment, this cosmic delegation back to the apostles when they were charged with being unifying the people under God, under Christ. And so in light of the coming kingdom. So all of this does tie back. So I'm going to go back to Deuteronomy 32 just for a moment, and then I want to dive into the early discussion about the distraction, about what's been in our news for all these years, about this claim, this conquest, this fighting over a little piece of land over there. The story goes much deeper than that. That's just follow the little bouncing ball, and it's one big fat distraction to keep us away from our inheritance and the emergence of the kingdom age. So in light of the collapse of those other empires, as discussed in the book of Daniel, so here it says, when the Most High divided their inheritance to the nations when he separated the sons of Adam. So that's, all of these languages now at Babel that happened. He set the boundaries of the peoples, the nations, according to the number of the children of God, not of Israel, to the number of the children of God. And in this, in my opinion, you're going to have earthly representatives and celestial fallen representatives. So they work hand in glove. So it's not just the celestial beings only, the celestial in cooperation with earthly beings so that they could be the front men for these fallen angelic beings. The Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the place of his inheritance. So this was God's secret weapon as to how to have his apportionment through his people and then eventually influence the whole earth. So we're talking about the tribes now, and each tribe has an inheritance, and each tribe has a blessing. And Deuteronomy even gets into that in fuller detail, and I've even gone to the lengths of superimposing the tribes, tracing the tribes even into Tartaria, because of this interest in the Tartarian kingdoms. I feel like there was an overlap that we must not forget, this overlap. It's not that we're glorifying Tartaria because it did fall into judgment, but there are secrets and echoes that go back to Eden in light of these wonderful blessings that the Most High has given to these wonderful tribes, which all of us have a partaking in these tribes if we so look into that heritage. So all this time since Babel happened, the kingdoms rose up, with Babylon, with Rome, with all these kingdoms. Now there's many, that the Assyrians and the whole nine yards, the whole story, that Daniel's statue, when he translated the dream for the king, those are the empires that came against these people that are the people of the God of Jacob. So meanwhile, while these powers, these earthly empires that are being controlled by fallen beings, are controlling the human race, especially targeting and attacking the children of Most High God himself, those who are his apportionment, When that persecution is removed in the kingdom age, guess what gets to happen again? We get to go back to the promises. All of us, not just two rivaling factions off in some land over across the Atlantic. No, 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 no. It's not about, just the seeds, of basically, the Palestinians fighting against the fake Jews fighting against the Palestinians. No, that's the actual shiny object that's in front of us. When the great stone judgment happens, not the great throne, but when the stone that's not carved from human hands falls and destroys the feet, the very last of this fourth beast, the fourth kingdom, when it destroys that, the only thing that's left is for the people to reclaim their inheritance back up under the tribes, not just two rivaling factions that have been a part of these kingdoms that are described in Daniel's, the statue that's described, because the two rivaling factions are still subservient to those kingdoms, particularly the Assyrians, as we know that even in the Desert Storm and all of that, it's been revealed. If you even looked at a dinar anytime soon, you can see that the belief system of Saddam Hussein and the like believed in bringing back the kingdom of Babylon. That's why on their dinar note, it shows this big, huge, giant being in a throne and bringing and glorifying the Babylonian ethos, okay? So the kingdom age, we're not going to be under any of these kingdoms. They're all going to be judged. In the iron, the feet of the iron and clay that's been mixed together is going to be 100% judged. So there's not going to be any of this vestige of kingdom left, because the people of God during the kingdom age are going to be under Christ alone, not all of these fallen systems, because God gave a command and said, come out of Babylon, lest ye be partakers in her sin.